Hey guys, and welcome to my Hellboy speed sculpt, and we're gonna get right into it here. And we're just starting off with a basic cylinder because, as I can sort of tell, right, his face is very cylindrical, and we're getting into the details here, or rather the block out phase. We'll get into the details later on, not now. Right, so just blocking things in, right, the cheekbones, sort of the neck here. Okay, trying to get in all the major forms, and you won't see me detailing anything just yet. Maybe getting in some forms like the lips and the nose. Okay, but here going for the chest, and this is kind of a bust almost, so I will get in the chest there, and okay, just trying to get in the nose next. Now what I'll do is just getting in some of the eyes, right, the eyebrows, and just trying to get in some of the basic sort of secondary shapes almost, and not going into detail. You can see I'm keeping it pretty low poly. Okay, I've got 50,000 points, and I'm not really going to go above that too soon. And even if I do, it won't be too high. Okay, so still keeping symmetry on here, and we'll break that pretty early actually. Okay, getting in the jaw, getting in those neck muscles. Okay, the sternomastoid muscle that you see there, that's very important, and you can see it in the reference. Okay, getting that in and trying to get the head shape. Okay, we don't need to be too cylindrical because at the end of the day, it doesn't really look like a cylinder, but pretty close. Okay, getting in those clavicles, okay, and the pecs. Okay, the chest muscles, and right now it doesn't really have any shoulders, so we'll get that in a second. Just trying to get that ribcage in as well. And yeah, we've got the neck, and we have some of those spine, the spine bones there. Okay, and okay, next trying to get that cigarette in. Why not? Just trying to block everything in. And here we're gonna get the smoke. Okay, so cylinder, and then just shaping this in, making sure to dynamesh that pretty low. And as you can see, it's only 1,500 points. Okay, just getting the shape, and it doesn't have to be exact. The whole idea is just to get it there, so we kind of have a little bit of proportions, okay, and some idea of proportions. Again, speaking of proportions, we're kind of sorting that out now. Just, you know, adjusting the chin, adjusting the cheeks, and getting in those shoulders as well, because we kind of want to have some sort of idea as to where everything goes and how they function. Okay, then getting in the pecs next, and right, getting in the clavicles, right, your collarbones, and here getting in the scapula, right, the shoulder bones, and also getting in some of the muscles here. Right, so now you can see I'm kind of applying some of these muscles just to get an idea of the just the separation of areas and also the proportions. Right, so again here, just trying to get in those bones, because you're not only made of muscle, but you have bones as well, and that will just add a little bit of structure to what you're sculpting or drawing. Sometimes if your sculpts look a little too squishy, it's because you're not really showing those bone structure. And here I actually switch off symmetry, so we're getting out of symmetry pretty early, because the sculpt is, or the reference is, very asymmetrical, right? Not too much symmetry going on. Okay, here getting in the nose. Okay, the nose is quite blocky, right? It's almost like a square or a cube just tilted on its edge. Okay, the nostril is very small, and getting in that infra, or not infraorbital, but nasolabial furrow, and here getting in some of the furrows below the eyes. Okay, and your facial anatomy will come into importance here, because even though this is exaggerated anatomy, it's still anatomically correct, or it should be, and you will make use of those terms and the anatomy itself, right? So knowing facial anatomy or body anatomy is still very important for caricatures even, right, and stylized work. So you're getting in some of those eyelids, and as you can see now I'm only getting in these secondary details, okay, and tertiary details. Well, mainly secondary, not really tertiary, somewhat tertiary, right? Getting in the cheekbones there, okay, and just really kind of creating these angles to kind of show that. Okay, and here we only have one view, so I'm going to have to use my anatomical knowledge to kind of fill in the blanks here. So here I'm trying to get the horns in, but then I realize it's probably easier just to insert the horns as a separate subtool, so I do that. Okay, so just getting a cylinder and using the deformer, and I have a video on how to use a deformer. If you're curious, you can just check the description, or I'll leave a link or a card. Okay, so just kind of getting it to the horn that we see on the right. Okay, here's left, our right, and just getting that in there, right? It's just going to be easier to work with the horn separately. Okay, and getting in the second horn here, right, the left one, his right, our left, and adjusting that a little bit because it's not the same shape. Okay, and tilt it the other way, and just a little bit different, right, compared to the first horn we did. And right, shaping that and moving that. Again, just trying to get the rough estimate of where it goes. Okay, and here I feel like his neck, it was a little too sort of straight, so I'm kind of pushing it back a little bit. And here again, getting in that sternocleidomastoid muscle, okay, very important, and the thorax here, or not the thorax, but the throat. Okay, the head as well. We can't see the back of his head, but I'm just assuming that this is kind of what's happening there. Okay, getting in those back muscles, right, the trapezius. Okay, and also those spine. Okay, the thoracic spine there. Okay, you're getting in the pecs and the deltoids. So this is where your anatomy knowledge comes into play, and if you know your anatomy, you can kind of just guess where these things go. Well, not guess, but you can take educated guesses as to where it goes, and right, and it'll look correct, because what you're doing is basing it on reality, but exaggerating it. But because it's based off of reality, it reads as, you know, it reads as being real, or in our world almost, right? Okay, just renaming some things there, making sure I'm staying organized, and now I'm just zero meshing that just so I can pose this, right? So just zero meshing that, and then right, just going back and forth there just to make sure, and I'm projecting some of that stuff, and also moving this back. Like I said, I want that head to really project forward or protrude forward, and also turning the head a little bit, because I feel like he's kind of facing us and his body is kind of facing away. So that's what I'm doing here. Okay, just sorting out the back there, and again, I know no one can see the back, but it's kind of good practice just to make sure that you're kind of keeping everything intact there. And here, creating like a half Smarty shape, basically, right, a half crescent. And for the eyes, right, pretty simple eyes, nothing too complicated, just a half circle. But this is 3D, so that's why I'm creating a half sort of crescent. Okay, and I think his right eye is kind of lower, so I did place it a little bit lower, and it's kind of smaller as well, so there's that. And just kind of moving it around because we don't have symmetry on, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, now trying to get these furrows in here and using the damn standard, and just adjusting the cheekbones as well. His cheekbones are actually very high, right? They almost connect with his eyebrow, right, immediately. Okay, just getting in the smoke because we haven't really been paying attention to anything outside of the body, so we're just getting that in, and pretty basic, right? Nothing too complicated there. And just getting in the ear next. Okay, and the ear is very simple in the drawing, but I am using a little bit of anatomy knowledge here, right? Just the concha, the tragus, antitragus. Just Google the parts of the ear, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, and pretty simple, right? Not being too realistic, and moving the cheekbones a little bit higher here, and also aligning the ear with the cheekbones, because they don't just randomly place there. The cheekbones kind of go just above the ear. Well, not above the ear, but it lines up with the ear, and the ear hole is just below that cheekbone. So, well, the zygomatic arch is what that is. Okay, so getting in some of these bony landmarks here, and resizing that ear, making sure it's kind of in the correct position. Here, adding just a little bit more anatomy to it. Not that that's really necessary. And just kind of shaping it. Okay, that looks pretty good, so I'll kind of leave it there. Yeah, just tilting the ear a little bit, because your ears are tilted back a little bit, right? They're not actually straight up. They are tilted back. Okay, just kind of having a look at this, and yeah, that doesn't look too bad. So I think next we'll move on to the hair. Right, I'll use this mask projection tool here, which is pretty handy. You basically just hold down Control, click and drag, and it will project a mesh outside of that mask. Okay, so I'm doing that, separating it from the object, and now just creating different subtools here and naming them. And then just moving them and then shaping them with the clay build-up. Okay, so we have the sideburns, we have the goatee, we kind of have like the mutton chops, I guess. And yeah, so just again giving it the basic shape, and we'll start to detail it as we go. So you kind of notice that, you know, you want to start with basic and then move on, or get a little bit more complicated as you go. Okay, so you don't want to start off with your details. You want to save your details for last, because if you make a mistake, you can always correct it. But if you detail something and you have to correct it, that's going to be a nightmare. So always work from big to small, and from sort of primitive to detailed. That applies to when you're drawing and when you're sculpting, right? Regardless, it doesn't matter. Okay, now onto the hair. We're just trying to get that hair shape, and he's kind of tied into a bun there, so it's going to pull back all the way into this bun. And right at the corner there. Okay, just using the dam standard to just, or the clay buildup rather, just to get in that crude shape. Same thing over here. Right, we'll get the hair in. We'll sort the hair out a little bit later on, but for now, just getting in that basic shape, and then just so we know what we're working with, and then if we need to change anything, we can change it and then move back and then detail it. Okay, creating a duplicate of this just so I can create the coat. Okay, just moving that around and dynameshing it, just so I have the shape, and then moving this up as well because he has a little bit of a collar, or a lot of a collar really. And here, just getting these areas, masking it, and then pressing Ctrl-Shift-E, okay, which will give you a nice clean cut edge loop there, and then just zero meshing that, right, just to get the simple shape there. Okay, and yeah, I'm just using the Z modeler just to kind of extrude these edges out here. First I was deleting those areas because we didn't need that many, because I feel like the collar isn't that high up. Well, it is high up, but I'm doing it so we can do this next. Right, extrude these edges out with the Z modeler, and then we can just shape this. Spent a little too long on this coat, but I think that's okay. Just making sure to kind of group his shoulders a little bit, because his shoulders aren't really like sort of propped up, they're kind of drooping down almost. And that is kind of like the classic Hellboy look almost. Here just shaping up the collar, and I think I made it a little bit smaller than we see in the reference. Right, his collar is actually very big. It's like, it's almost like encompassing his face in terms of like the space it takes up. Right, it's actually very big. So I made mine a little bit smaller, but I think that's okay. Okay, speaking of the hair, just moving it around, and then now I'm trying to get into some of the more details on the face here. So now we're at almost 1,000,000 polygons, right? Not yet, and just getting in some, and now I just went to 1,000,000 polygons, right? 1.2, and just getting in some of these details here, just smoothing stuff out and pushing stuff in, and also using the standard brush, right, just to push stuff out there, and the dam standard in this case to push stuff in and pull stuff out. Okay, getting in the sort of cracked lips there. Here, really getting in that zygomatic arch, which is the cheekbone. Okay, kind of getting in the corner of the lips there, and not too much details there, right? Right, just getting in the Adam's apple there. Here, trying to just give like planes to the different areas there. Okay, again, just getting into more details here, and here I'm gonna just move the ears around because ears aren't exactly symmetrical, and then merge it to the head. And now we can just kind of fill that up with the clay brush, not the clay buildup. Right, and then detail the ears. Okay, same thing on the other side, because it's asymmetrical now, so we have to kind of do one at a time. Okay, now moving on to the eyes, we kind of have these eye bags here, right, just the fat below the eyes. Then we have his eyelid here, and then the eyebrow. I guess it's kind of his eyebrow and his upper eyelid. It's more an eyebrow, I guess. Okay, you're really using the dam standard here to cut into or pull out of, and just to kind of show those plane changes, because they're quite harsh on the drawing. Okay, trying to make it pretty smooth in my one here, and almost halfway through this, or rather we actually past the halfway mark, and really getting in these eyebrows here. Okay, and the area around the horns. Okay, pulling that out. You don't really see it on the reference, but you know, when a horn comes out of something, there's kind of like a little bit of a distortion with the skin around it. Okay, you'll kind of see that, like with rhinos or elephants or bucks, basically anything with a horn poking out of its head. Right, you'll have a little bit of a like an area around it. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. Okay, again, just trying to get these areas, like establish them again and re-establish them, and getting that asymmetry, right? You can see me doing that zigzag there just to kind of show the asymmetry of that, right? Like the eyes lower, then the nose might be higher, and then the mouth is lower, something like that. So yeah, just sharpening out these horns and kind of using the dam standard just to add a little bit of sort of like wear and tear on the horns. Okay, doing the same thing here, just sharpening those edges. Okay, now we're almost done with the sculpting stage, right? Just getting in more details, and right now moving on to the hair. Hair does take up quite a bit of time, and there's different ways of sculpting hair and doing hair, and right now moving to the collar. But you'll see how, like, at this stage I'll just move back and forth between things, like things that just catch my attention. So now it's the eyebrows, then it was the collar, now it's the hair, now it's the collar again, right? Just moving this back and forth, and I realized that this we can sort out once we apply the Dynamesh to it, or the dynamic to that. Here just moving the cigarette as well, because we didn't really sort that out. So here just showing that the cigarette is actually inserting into his mouth, and it's kind of like, you know, creating a little bit of an indent there. Again, the smoke is coming from the cigarette. So yeah, like I was saying with the hair, there's different ways of doing this. So here I'm going to use the clay buildup mainly, and you'll see me using the snake hook. So here I'm just using the clay buildup to kind of show the direction of the hair. Okay, and here I got it wrong, so I was doing it in the other direction. So you're just doing it in that direction, just to kind of show me, like, okay, that's where the hair is going. And this is just sort of like a preliminary phase, right? Like, just showing me where it's going so I know what to do next. Okay, and the hair, you can obviously get as detailed or as stylized as you want, but this is pretty stylized, so we're not going to go too detailed with the hair. Again, using the damp standard, or the clay buildup rather, to show me the direction of the hair. And just set up that basic primary phase. Okay, same thing with the bun. Being a little bit more organized with my lines here. Okay, also moving the hair so it kind of makes more sense. Here with the cigarette, dynameshing it, and all I'm doing is using the spray function with the standard brush and an alpha in ZBrush, just to create that sort of cigarette look there at the burnt tip or the edge. I don't know the parts of the cigarette, I don't smoke, so I don't know what they're called. Okay, getting in that smoke as well, and the smoke is relatively simple here. We're just kind of doing what we see on the reference. Get a little bit of standard brush and just moving it around, just to kind of give it a little bit more life, and not really too important there, but okay, here getting the damp standard just to suggest the and you can do this in Substance Painter. Actually, it's probably better to do it in Substance Painter. There's no need for me to do it here, but I am doing it here, so, and you'll see me doing it in Substance Painter as well. So these type of details you can either leave for Substance Painter, or if you're not using Substance Painter, then obviously do these details, but we will be using Substance 3D, or Substance 3D, whatever it's called now. We'll be using Substance 3D just to get in some of these details here. Okay, moving that cigarette just a little bit, right, because it was too straight. Okay, I'd assume the pack of cigarettes he has isn't exactly brand new, right? They're trying to just give him a little bit of a smirk, or an eyebrow lift rather, not a smirk, but I don't know, I don't really like it too much. I feel like his expression here is just kind of dead. And maybe we'll leave it like that, right? So yeah, just using some alphas just to see what I want, and yeah, you know, it looks okay, so I'm just smoothing it out here and there. Right, smoke is supposed to be smooth, by the way, but in this drawing it's very sort of hatched. So I'm just trying to get that look as well. Just trying to be careful not to go overboard, because there are areas where it's smooth and areas where it's hatched. So we'll just be careful with that. So yeah, using the snake hook and just trying to get in those sort of like hair not strands, but bunches. Okay, and then using the standard brush with an alpha, right, one of those sort of striped alphas from ZBrush. It comes with the program, right, and then just using that to kind of really show the direction of the hair, right, just like that. So I'll use the snake hook, like I said, and then I'll use that standard brush with the alpha. So again, there's different ways of doing hair. This is the one I chose for this one because it's stylized. There's one, I have another sculpt coming up, you'll see that one's a little bit more realistic in the hair. And then of course you've got like crazy real, like you'll do that in Blender or in 3D Max or Maya or whatever. That would be a nightmare to do in ZBrush to sculpt. You'd have to stylize it to some degree, right? If you look at realistic sculptures like Michelangelo's or whatever, the hair is very stylized. It's not realistic looking. Okay, same thing here, just using that alpha to really showcase the hair sort of, right, being pulled back into the bun. Okay, and then with the bun as well, right, just being wrapped over. Okay, so there it is, and we're pretty much done. You're just getting in some details, right, knocking out some more extra work, right, maybe unbending some areas or unflattening some areas, or right, pushing out some areas that might need that. But for the most part, we're pretty much done. It's just a little bit more detailing, and that's kind of it. See, I'm just saving it one as a high, one as a low, just so I have a low poly version and a high poly version, because we are going to bake this out and texture it in Substance. But here I'm just renaming everything. So basically everything has a name, and I'm calling it underscore high. And then for the low poly version, of course, I'll call it underscore low. So like I'm doing here. This is pretty important so that Substance Painter can kind of recognize this and then use that to bake. Okay, so here I'm just decimating everything. This isn't the best way to do this, by the way. It's like a quick and dirty way of doing it. Like if you just want to get a render out really quickly without having to retopologize things, this is super, super helpful. Not the best way of doing it, like I said, but I hate retopologizing things. It's such a waste. I mean, I know why it's done, but unless I'm doing it for a game or something, there's no need for me to do it. And I'm not going to put myself through that. So I'm just going to zero mesh these and unwrap it. And yeah, when you go to unwrap, you can just basically say that these areas you can cut or put a seam, and everything else, don't put a seam on that. And ZBrush, it does an okay job. If you want to do this manually, it's probably better to do this manually. But like I said, this is quicker, so I'm just going to get it done and unwrap it, and there it is. Okay, same thing here. I'm just going to unwrap all of these. The cigarette, I know that might struggle, so I'm kind of attracting those areas to say this is where you want to cut. Same thing with the horns. I'd have probably done this better, but again, it's just a quick way of doing this. No one's really going to call us out on that, because again, it's not for a game. This is just so I can render it and show people like, hey, look, right? That's about it. There's no other reason for it. The face, I'm just putting like lines everywhere just to be like, cut here, but don't cut anywhere else, right? And it looks okay, right? So now we're on to the texturing. So texturing, rendering, and lighting, and this will be pretty quick as well. So now we're on to Substance here, and you'll notice I forgot to check the match by mesh name. So we have this arrow over here. I couldn't really figure out. I was like, why is it doing that? But I forgot to say match by mesh name, which you can see there. So I just went to Blender, just trying to figure things out here, and I was like, why is it doing that? But I figured it out. Like I said, I forgot to say match by mesh name. So here we have it. Everything's fine, and we're rendering it in 4K. And here, just applying some materials. Okay, so just getting my materials here, and I'm just using one that I created from one of my other projects, right? Just a custom material here, and you can just see some of the Hellboy references I have here, and I feel like this coat's a little bit more pink, right? Because you know, the actual reference is very pink, right? So just adjusting some of that, right? Adding a paint layer to this and painting away from that, and then adding to it, right? Okay, see, I'm using the white just to add to the paint, okay, and this here will just sort of add that faded look, because his jacket isn't new, right? As you can imagine, Hellboy isn't going shopping every weekend, right? So he's got quite a bit of wear and tear. So this is just the first layer of dirt, or the wear and tear, right? We'll put quite a bit on it, and you'll notice I'm switching between black and white. So the black will minus from it, and the white will add to it. And I'm just using a brush here with the Dirt Alpha. Okay, so yeah, I don't know why I'm using this, going to cigarette next, but we're doing that, and I thought the hull damage would look good, but I'm like, it doesn't really work too well with that. So I'm just going to use this machinery on here, and just use that just to kind of get this sort of smoky look here, right? That smoky burnt look, and then just add and minus from it. Again, I don't know the names, the parts of the cigarette, so it's probably incorrect. Right, so just adding and minusing from there. Okay, so next we're going to do that yellow part of the cigarette, and I guess that's the butt, I don't know. Okay, so adding that, and not a lot of shininess to it, so we're going to bring down the roughness as well. Yeah, I was like finicking around, I was like, I don't know what to add to it. But then I just painted that back on, it's like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So yeah, just adding a grunge layer to that, and another full layer, and on that full layer we're adding a mask. And right, so on the full layer we're adding a mask and a gradient, and then we're just tiling that. And same thing with this part of the cigarette here. Right, just adding these lines to it, and that was really quick, by the way, but it's not a tutorial on how to do that, so you can just Google how to do that. Okay, just creating these folders, making sure I'm organized. Okay, we're just adding the eyes. The eyes we'll actually just do in Blender. There's no need to color them. Okay, next I'm going to this rust, and we're using that for the horns. Getting that really pink color, and the whole idea here is because, you know, the horns are quite sort of rough. Well, not rough, but they've been roughed up. So that's kind of why I'm using the rust on that. And you'll see me here just messing around with the tiling. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, how, you know, high do I want this? And yeah, I figured, okay, I don't want any color, so I'm checking that off. And now we're just dealing with the alphas and the height map, basically. So now I'll just add my own color to it. And it's quite pink, so I'll add that. And next I'll add dirt to it, which is pretty harsh. Okay, bring that down and bring down the colors here. Again, if you don't know how to use substance, this is definitely foreign to you. You have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm just adding some layers here, right, just to get in those colors. Just in getting that dirt and the sort of the wear and tear, right? And here again, switching to white and adding to that. Very pink, but like I said, this is quite a pink reference, right? Minusing from there because I don't want too much. Okay, but then adding again to this, horns here. So it looks pretty pink now, but when I render it later, it's actually very red, so it's not that bad. Okay, here we're going to Hellboy, and I figured we'd do the hair first, and then we'd do Hellboy. So I did the hair, and I did some lines on that. You can see I applied it, but I'm not going to show you how I did that because I'm going to get out of that later on. So yeah, right, moving on to Hellboy, I just added the a basic fill layer, right, and now I'm just adding a dark area with a black mask and just painting that in. That's all I'm doing. So I just added a fill layer, which was that pinkish color, okay, and then now I'm just adding this darker color around the eyes, right, around these furrows here as well. I didn't add enough actually, so when I render it, it's not that visible. So if you want to make it darker on your side, you can definitely do that. And I will make it darker later on, I just want to show you. Okay, here, right where the clavicles are, right the neck. The neck is quite a different color from the rest of your body, so right, same thing with the inside of the ears. The outside of the ears is actually quite light, so I'm going to make sure to do that. Okay, really getting into the neck there and the ears. And I should have separated my my model here, right, so I could paint better. But that's okay. Okay, adding the lighter color next, right, just for the areas that are like bony or just lighter colored on the face. Okay, so like the nose, the tip of the nose, right, the clavicles there a little bit. These edges around the horns. Okay, your ears as well. And this just kind of adds to the believability. Right, if you know how to paint faces, then you kind of know where you should be putting these things. Okay, so adding that rust again here to him instead of the horns, and I'm just bringing down the opacity on that, right? So it's not too noisy, right? So you're adding that as well on his face because he kind of has like freckles almost, and just bringing down the color, right? Kind of making it more pink, and you can see it here. Just adjusting the tiling, right, and the size. Then I realized it's kind of messy, so I chose a different grunge scale there, and then used this one, and I'm just adding to it. Right, you can see I'm changing it to a different color so I can see it, and then now I'm just minusing from it, so it's not everywhere, right? So using black and then minusing from it. Okay, again, just so it's not everywhere. I don't really want it to dominate. Okay, going to triplanar because if you do a bad unwrap job, triplanar will save you on that one. Triplanar is basically just saying, okay, wherever there's seams, just kind of blend it so it doesn't look like there's a seam. So triplanar will just project it better. Okay, just messing around with the colors there so it's not too noticeable. But later on, like I said, I will add just a little bit more pink to it, and based on our reference, right, the reference actually has quite a few splotches here and there. Because moving on to the hair, I'm just adding a little bit of that dirt that we had on the face and the horns, but really showing it here, and I will bring down the balance, as you can see there. Okay, we don't want that much dirt on him, so I will minus it with a mask. Okay, same thing here with dust. Just putting some dust on him, why not? And just adjusting it so it's not too much, and just minusing it, you know, really pulling it back with the black there, because I don't want it to outshine what's happening. Putting some dust in the face as well, right? Maybe we're just in a fight, right? Underground or something, in a subway or whatever. Okay, when you add these things, they kind of, you know, add to the story. Okay, what was he doing? What was he fighting? Where has he been? Right? If you just keep it clean, then there's no sort of background behind that, right? Same thing with your weapons and swords and whatever. If it's brand new from the store, that makes sense. But if your characters had that gun for years or something, you know, maybe it's got a few scratches and scuffs and dirt, and you know, it tells a story, right? So it adds kind of a story to your character, to the gun, to the weapon, to the environment. So everything looking brand new will just look odd. If you play XCOM 2, everything kind of looks new, right? The city looks new, even though the aliens have been around for like 20 years. Everything just looks too clean, right? And it looks kind of weird. It looks plastic almost. So that's one of the reasons. And Hellboy obviously isn't new, right? He's pretty old, and you know, he's been through quite a bit of stuff there. Right, so adding a layer this time, not a full layer, just a normal layer, and going to the stitches and adding some stitches here. I'm also adjusting it so that you can't see the stitches. It's more of a sort of fold line or sew line. So basically I brought down all the stitches so you can only see that kind of division there. Okay, just going through and being kind of lazy because I don't go through all the pieces. I'm just doing like areas you can see and skipping areas that you can't. Okay, but it's not too bad. So yeah, you know, as you can see, it looks a lot better than it was looking like 5 minutes ago. So definitely better. So yeah, moving on to smoke. As you can see, smoke is pretty smooth. It's not rough, right? There's no jagged edges on smoke. It's very smooth overall. But here on the reference, right, it is quite it's quite sketchy, right? There's like a crosshatch to it, so I'm trying to go for that look, but I'm also being kind of wary about it as well. Just experimenting here, really. I'm just trying to see like what works, what doesn't work, and what I can get away with, because I'm not too sure how I want to handle it, right? Maybe I just take it into Blender and just use like a smoke node on it, right, just to have actual smoke, but I'm not too sure at this point, so we'll see what I'm doing. So yeah, I just decided to do that to kind of copy what we had in the reference, and I keep it for now, but like I said, we might go into Blender and just use smoke just to see what we get. That might be better, it might be worse, but it's always good to have options, so I'm using this, and we'll see what we can come up with. So speaking of Blender, all you have to do is just take all your exported textures, bring them into Blender, and then just use these nodes here and just plug them in, right? The only thing you need to worry about is that sRGB. So instead of sRGB for everything, you need to change it to non-color. Okay, the only one you keep as sRGB is the base color, I think. And then, because you'll have a little bit of problems if you don't do that, you'll kind of see like textures look inverted, or they're too rough or shiny or whatever. Okay, so yeah, just getting into Blender and moving the lights around, and yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Right, again with the smoke, I might try and mess with the opacity in Substance Painter, or I will, you know, use like a sort of smoke node. So you're just adding a light to the cigarette, right, because the cigarette will emit light, and changing his eyes to an emission. Okay, and I'm also changing the render to cycles, right, just because cycles just looks better, right? EVs, okay. It depends on what you're rendering and what you're going for. Okay, so we're moving this, and yeah, we're pretty much done here. All I'm going to do is just go back in Substance Painter, get some things done, come back here, adjust some things, and yeah, that's kind of it, right? You can see me adjusting the room light. We've got a full light. Here going to false color, just to kind of see, and you can see it's very light actually, so, or very dark. We need to add more light, but I don't know, it looks okay, but I'll keep adjusting this, keep going. Back into Substance, I do want to, you know, change some things because I saw some things I don't really like. So darkening out some of these areas here, right, just making them a little bit more darker, and Also some of the lighter areas I want to get into because I feel like those aren't as light or need to be lighter. And so, you know, just finicking around here basically. And this is kind of something that you're going to have to do. You will have to go back and forth. You're never going to get it right the first time. It's highly unlikely. And this is what we see here. So just, you know, moving back and forth, seeing what I like, what I don't like, what I need to add, what I maybe need to minus, okay, stuff like that. And that's just all I'm doing here. It's really the polishing phase at this point. Okay, nothing too surprising. And yeah, just adding kind of like those freckles that I see, and duplicating this layer as well because I want to create those freckles on another layer, because just in case I don't like them, I can always minus them out of that layer. Okay, so we have a little bit on the forehead, some on the cheeks. And here we're going to the light splotches, okay, and adding some of those. Okay, this is actually very deep here, so I'm going to go down to the height and bring it up because it was going in too much. And yeah, so just adding some of these lighter areas here that I see on the reference. And again, more on the chest and just a little bit on the stereomastoid. And here are some of those splotches that we see on his chin. Okay, playing around with the colors, trying to get more of a magenta color than a pink color. But again, just going back and forth, and I was too lazy to find the original reference because this one's a little bit more pink than the original reference, but I did find the original reference. And here, going to emission, all I did was I went to the texture settings and added a texture called emission. So this will just be a glow on the cigarette because I thought that was also missing, so I'm adding that. And yes, as you can see, just polishing things up. And next we have the principled volume, which I'm using for the smoke. I decided not to use the smoke. I decided to use the smoke from the texture set. I'm using just, you know, a normal smoke here. So here we have all these texture coordinates or nodes. You don't really need them. Okay, you can see a color ramp. All you need is a principled volume plugged into the volume, and that's it, right? Just to create smoke. So principled volume, plug that into the volume, and here we have it. Okay, so it's currently rendering, and as you can see, the smoke looks pretty good, right? Not the best, but honestly, I'm not going for holy moly realism. And yeah, I just changed the color to a little bit of a pinker color. And yeah, that's about it. I don't really change anything else. I did add those other nodes, but those other nodes don't really make that big of a difference. Okay, and here we are on the final product. And this is it, right? I'm calling it here. It took about 3.5 hours, like I said, to sculpt it. And maybe about 2 to 3 hours for the texturing and back and forth in Blender, sorting out the lighting. But overall, yeah, not too bad. There are a few things I would change. If we look at the original reference here, right, you can see there's this pretty, you know, there's a nice C curve that we have here, and I don't have it too much on this one, right? I would have done that a little bit better, right? Some of these splotches here are shown more. I can see some of these details here, they're a little too generic or monotonous, so I would vary them up. I just vary them up a little bit more, and the anatomy I'm okay with, but just the gesture, I feel like, you know, I could have definitely done better with that. And yes, I am crediting my own work because, you know, I do think it's a good idea to go back and have a look and just think about what you can change. And again, this was supposed to be a quick sort of jump in, sculpt, and then move on, right? It wasn't supposed to be this planned out sort of intricate piece, right? But still, you know, even though you're doing something, you should definitely go back, have a look, and see what you can change. But yeah, that is it, right? Here we have the second view, right? I rendered a side view, right? The smoke's looking pretty cool on this one. I probably vary the smoke a little bit more on this one, right? Maybe move that one out a little bit more. Right, and then we have the back view here, and we just got a close-up of the cigarette, which is looking pretty cool. I like it. The only thing I would have changed on this back view, I would have added more wear and tear. Yeah, I didn't notice that. I only noticed it after I rendered it. It's like, but I'll leave it. When I show it off, I'll cut off this piece here. Right, that's okay. But usually when people do stuff like this, they'll just render them one piece. They won't even bother with the back. But yeah, I just did it for fun, right? Just to see what I could get away with. And yeah, overall, not too bad. Like I said, I would change a few things, but that is it. And yeah. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Pretty quick here. Not really a tutorial on how to do this, but just a very quick walkthrough of what I was doing and why I was doing things. And the way I unwrap things as well was pretty terrible, but definitely not something you're going to want to do for a professional game environment. They will kick you out for doing that. But like I said, just to get something in really quickly, that's what you would do. Right, just a very quick and dirty way of doing that. You wouldn't actually do that because you would get fired in a work environment. But yeah, right, just experimenting. And this was a total of, I think it's about a 3.5 hour sculpt, and then the Blender and Substance was maybe 1.5 hours or 2 hours. So not bad. Altogether about 5 hours, 6 hours maybe. And yeah, that is it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know if you guys want more videos like this. right? Because I don't make too many videos like this. And yeah, I will have another one coming up, right? And I will have another one coming up of the latest sculpt that I did, the portrait of the old man George. Yeah, that's one that will be both a free and paid tutorial, so you can check that one out as well. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section. Let me know if you want more videos like this, and if you really like my content, you can subscribe or check out my paid tutorials in the description below. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you in the next one.